Hey guys, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with the next video in our How to Play series on the Royal Navy cruiser line. This is the Tier 8 Edinburgh class cruiser. The Edinburghs were a subclass of the Town class light cruiser. There were 10 Town class cruisers completed, but only 2 of them are in the Edinburgh subclass, that being Edinburgh and Belfast, both of which are in the game. The Town-class cruisers were designed around the constraints laid out in the 1930 London Naval Treaty. The Edinburgh subclass was a longer Town-class cruiser, in which they originally intended her to have 16 6-inch guns in 4 quadruple turrets, instead of the 12 6-inch guns and triple turrets that we see in-game. This plan was scrapped due to a lack of viable quad 6-inch gun mounts. The Edinburghs would receive a different turret configuration than the other 8 Town-class cruisers, which allowed for much better rate of fire with reduced crew requirements. They also received additional AA gun mounts over the other 8 Town-class cruisers in the form of 4 extra 4-inch guns and additional 40mm guns. In terms of service history, the Edinburgh was attached to the task force that was set out to find the German battleship Scharnhorst. Unfortunately, she would not be successful in finding her. Edinburgh also played a minor role in the hunt for the German battleship Bismarck when she was on patrol in the Bay of Biscay, where she captured the German vessel Lech in 1941. She would later then be sent to the attack path of Bismarck, however Bismarck would never get there. For the most part, Edinburgh spent the war escorting convoys to Russia. She would eventually be lost while returning to Scapa Flow from Murmansk, Russia. She was torpedoed twice by the U-456, once in the bow and once in the stern. The hit to the stern crippled the Edinburgh's propulsion and steering, and her escorts were forced to tow her back to Murmansk. While in tow back to Murmansk, the task force was hounded by German torpedo bombers until the German destroyers Hermann Schumann, Z-24, and Z-25 launched their attacks on Edinburgh. The 3 German destroyers were able to successfully hit Edinburgh with another torpedo on the opposite side that the 2 torpedoes from the U-boat had hit her. This caused them to scuttle Edinburgh, as the only thing holding her together, and I quote, was the keel and the deck plating. She would be sunk by the last torpedo by one of her escorts. And Edinburgh would actually end up sinking Hermann Schumann prior to going down. The Belfast is in-game, and she's a premium ship. I'll cover her history when I buy her, so we won't go into her extensive history in this video. In-game, it's really hard to say that this ship is a drastic improvement over the Fiji. Unlike the change from Leander to Fiji, where there was this huge change in capabilities, the Edinburgh just isn't that much of an upgrade over Fiji. In fact, really the only 2 stats that she seems to excel over Fiji in is concealment and anti-aircraft role. The gunplay is almost identical. The torpedo play is almost identical. She does get 10-kilometer torpedoes, and they're definitely worth that upgrade over Fiji. But you only still have 6 of them, so it's not like it's a huge change from the torpedoes on Fiji. Also, the Edinburgh suffers from some weird bugs, and it's not just Edinburgh. The Minotaur also suffers from this problem, and I'm working on figuring out whether or not Neptune suffers from this problem too. But what happens is when you're deploying smoke, if you deploy it at a certain speed, for me, it's been consistent around 22 knots. You'll only get 1 smoke ring puff. You won't get the 2 or 3 that you're supposed to get. I sent in a support ticket to Wargaming. We'll see if they end up fixing it, but it's been consistent enough that it's gotten me killed more than a couple times in Edinburgh. Also, the primary advantage over Fiji, though, is definitely that lower concealment rating. In fact, the Edinburgh, if you spec her out fully for concealment with Concealment Expert and the concealment module upgrade, she does have the ability to stealth fire both her guns and the torpedoes. Of course, the downside to this is you lose out in maneuverability, which is one of the other downsides to Edinburgh. So if you're catching from my tone of voice, I'm not terribly thrilled with the way Edinburgh performs in-game. That's not to say she's not a great ship, she just requires a lot more work for her tier than Fiji does, and Fiji is such a fun ship. Thankfully, it's not like this ship is Emerald or Weymouth bad, so you don't have to worry about, just absolutely ridiculously bad gameplay. It's just that Edinburgh isn't quite the upgrade over Fiji as Fiji was over Leander. Let's go ahead and let's talk about her stats in-game. She has 36,400 hit points and 114 millimeters of armor at her belt. Her main battery consists of 12 6-inch guns in 4 turrets of triple barrel turrets, and there are 2 fore, 2 aft, and they have a main battery firing range of 15.4 kilometers. Her secondaries consist of 6 of the dual 4-inch gun mounts that would also serve as part of her anti-aircraft suite. She also has 6 torpedoes and 2 triple launchers, one launcher mounted on each side. They have a 10-kilometer range and a 62-knot top speed, and they do 15,533 damage. Her AA gun defense is actually quite excellent, and a spec'd-out AA Edinburgh is quite a capable ship. She has 14 of the twin 20mm Oerlikon mounts. She also has 3 of the 6-barreled 40mm Bofors. Let's zoom in and show you what those guys look like. That is one mean anti-aircraft gun mount. Her AA complement also consists of those 6 twin 4-inch gun mounts that we see mounted on all British ships for their anti-aircraft defense. In terms of maneuverability, her max speed is 32.5 knots, her turning circle is 680 meters, and her rudder shift time with both rudder shift modules is 4.6 seconds. It's 8.5 without steering gears mod 3. Her concealment range is 11.3 kilometers by sea and 8.1 kilometers by air. Again, that is without Concealment Expert and without the concealment module in the Tier 8 slot. Speaking of those upgrades, let's go ahead and let's dive into them. Main Armaments Mod 1, still the standard for pretty much every ship in the game. Aiming Systems Mod 1. The other viable option here is AA Guns Mod 2 for the increase in AA gun range. I have taken Aiming Systems Mod 1 just to get a little bit better damage per second out of these ships. A couple more shell hits, that always helps out, especially by the time you get to Tier 8. The ships that you're going to be shooting at have a lot of armor and are a lot harder to do damage to, so a few more hits with those 6-inch guns always helps. Propulsion Systems Mod 1 for the decrease in chance to lose your engine and decreasing the repair time for them if you do lose them. Steering Gears Mod 2, I would definitely recommend this over Damage Control Systems Mod 2. And this last slot, the Tier 8 slot, this is new for the Edinburgh, for the Royal Navy Cruiser line thus far. You have 3 different options. Target Acquisition Systems Mod 1 to increase the range at which you detect other ships. Your spotting range as well, and your acquisition range of torpedoes. That spotting range of ships is they call it assured acquisition. That's if you're approaching, like, say, a smoke cloud. The normal spotting range is 2.5 kilometers. You're going to automatically detect those ships that are in smoke. This bumps it up another 50%. Concealment Systems Mod 1, which reduces the detection range of the ship by 10%. That drops it from 11.3 to 10.2, I think is what it comes out to be, or 10.1. And then Steering Gears Mod 3, which reduces the rudder shift time by an additional 40% and decreases the time it takes to repair your rudder by 80%. I've chosen Steering Gears Mod 3, and the reason why is there is a noticeable difference in the way that Edinburgh and Fiji handle. And for me, the decrease in rudder shift makes the Edinburgh play a lot nicer than taking concealment. If you're one of those people that is good at harassing enemy ships by popping in and out of stealth, certainly take the Concealment Systems Mod 1, and the rudder shift time of 8.6 seconds isn't completely awful. These ships have a very effective rudder for what they are. It's just, for me personally, I much prefer having a much more agile rudder. And so for me, I've chosen to take the Steering Gears Mod 3 to make this thing have a 4.6 second rudder shift time, which is destroyer levels of rudder shift. You can imagine that that really helps this ship mitigate damage, because I can sit there and mash my A and D keys, or my Q and E keys, depending on how you use your rudder, and avoid incoming fire. And so for me, that's definitely the better upgrade for me. And kind of going back to that in-game stats, the unfortunate part of Edinburgh is, unlike Fiji, she's best played in more of a longer range support role, whereas Fiji could really get in there and get hyper aggressive with enemy ships. Edinburgh simply can't. I have not found a valuable way to make her work that way. Thankfully, you've got plenty of options in your tool belt here to take care of anything at slightly longer ranges, and you still have those torpedoes for when things do get up close and personal. Anyway, let's dive on into the battle video, because I'm sure that's what you guys are waiting to see. Alright, so this battle is going to be a Tier 8 fight, and you're going to see that there is, of course, no aircraft carriers in this match because, well, reasons. Why would we ever have aircraft carriers in a Tier 8 fight, right? Well, that just means that this is going to be a totally skewed battle result. There's no way this could possibly be well or end well for anyone. And of course, this is on the map Loop, which I don't particularly care for this map, but there are a number of strategies that you can employ to really do well on this map. And of course, one of the big things with Edinburgh is that it does suffer from a glitch in its smoke deployment, and this is also a problem with the Neptune and Minotaur afterwards, in that if you're deploying the smoke too fast, you only get 2 puffs of smoke. So one of the things you need to pay attention, especially on open maps like Loop, is that when you deploy your smoke, that you actually are shooting from the smoke and not going to be detected as soon as you start firing. If you have to panic smoke, make sure you do so with plenty of room to get out of that situation, or give yourself some hard cover at a minimum. Anyway, I'm going to go over to A, and the reason I'm going over to A is there's a tendency for battleships and destroyers to go to A as their favorite place to go and play. Well, it's a good place for a ship like the Edinburgh to be. If we can take out some destroyers, or at least damage them, or at least scare them away, there's a good possibility that our destroyers, of which there's only 2 in this match per side, so not a big deal, but normally you'll have more than just the 2, so that we can actually capture the points and, you know, win the game, because obviously you have to capture points. So I'm going to go to A. I don't particularly care for C. There's not a lot of cover over there. And B just opens you up to far too many different avenues for fire to approach you on. So I'm definitely going to A. We're going to try and find us something to shoot at over at A. One thing that I talked about in the port side of this was the use of the rudder shift module to get that rudder shift down. And that is just, I can't stress how important it is to have that module on the ship and be able to just kick the rudder over and all of a sudden be changing directions. Using the maneuverability of the ship is just critical for me. Now, I'm a pretty aggressive cruiser player, and so I will, generally speaking, be firing away for large portions of time. That stealth build really works well for getting in close to other ships, other cruisers especially, and kind of surprising them at the, you know, the edge of your detection range, which is really short for a ship of this size. But my problem is it leaves you far too open then for problems later on involving trying to escape from sticky situations. You're trying to avoid torpedoes, trying to do whatever. It just ends up not working out terribly well for me. So we're approaching A rather quickly, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut my speed, and I'm going to use this to... We've got plenty of targets here to shoot at. I think we'll be more than capable of... We're going to slow down. You see, we waited until we were about 16 knots to deploy that smoke. Went ahead and deployed it, and you can see we are in smoke. And I knew that was going to be the case, because 14 knots is all it takes to stay inside the detection circle for a destroyer. For a ship like the Royal Navy cruisers, which basically have your acceleration module, it's a lot easier. Also, you can see it looks like their whole line is coming our way, and so that gives us plenty of targets over here to shoot at. And we're looking for targets to shoot at, and of course nobody's spotting anything, so it's very difficult to actually engage anything. And, well, you see we still managed to hit that Scharnhorst that was there, even though he wasn't spotted. Okay, he's spotted again. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to keep on shooting until the smoke runs out. Now, a good rule of thumb, if you pay attention to your smoke counter down at the bottom, is that as you're approaching the 1 minute mark on that smoke, you want to go ahead and start bailing. We got about 35 seconds before we need to start thinking about bailing out. One other thing to keep in mind is radar cruisers are bad news. Focusing down radar cruisers is going to help you a lot. We've not had a terribly large amount of success in getting any damage at this point. And you'll notice I'm playing the ship at far longer ranges than I would normally play any other ship. I launched a torpedo there because, well, I thought I might be able to get that Yagumo. We are also coming up on the end of our smoke. Sorry, not Yagumo. Might be able to do something, but that Yagumo is in the way. So I went ahead and I launched the torpedo, and, well, it's a good thing he ended up not surviving. He ends up doing a fairly decent amount of damage to those ships, which is amazing. Good for him. Our smoke is dissipated, so we are bailing out. We are using the fact that there are no real battleships in this area. We're going to go ahead and bring all of our guns to bear. But we are running away from this situation. And there's a very good reason for that. Look at the map, our side compared to their side. What do they have that we don't? Well, we have one battleship. He's right there behind me in a Bismarck. And, oops, Citadel hit. Nice. The lone hit on that poor Indianapolis. We have a Bismarck, but he's, he's it for battleships. Everything else is a cruiser over here. And there's only the 4 of us. Well, I guess there is another battleship over here. Well, either way you look at it, all of our fleet is concentrated on the east side of the map. We're over here on the west side. Things are getting kind of hot and heavy over here. So we're going to bail out of this area as best we possibly can. We've gone invisible. We're going to use that to our advantage. It's a Gneisenau is the other one. So we're using our stealth to reposition ourselves as best we can to continue to engage these ships. And we're going to... we're going to go ahead and fire at the Scharnhorst before he even gets around the edge of the island. One of the things that as you get more and more comfortable with the different indicators, you'll get used to the icons and where the ship is at in relation to their name tag above them. And you can kind of guess when people are coming around mountains where they'll come out around. But anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll keep engaging the Scharnhorst as he's running away. He's the only thing that can fire at us at this point in time, which is good. We also have this island here and that we can use quite extensively to try and get ourselves to North Carolina, but unfortunately, the island gets in the way. And he's opening up broadside, so sign me up, buddy. Gonna go ahead and we're putting ourselves in full-on stop mode, and then he disappears. So we're gonna pop our smoke, and again, you'll notice I'm being very cautious about where it is I'm deploying my smoke from and at what speed because of the bug with these ships. If you are going 22, 24 knots like you would in, say, Fiji, things don't end well for you. And what ends up actually happening is really nothing good at all. So there you could see where the shots were coming from. And even though we can't see him, we can actually engage where he was at. That last salvo didn't hit. That's perfectly acceptable. He's most likely moving a lot quicker. We got this Pensacola over here, and Pensacola's are known fodder for cruisers. It's for that cruiser-on-cruiser fight. They still have a destroyer. We have none, so I have no idea where their destroyer is at. We're going to pop our hydro to give us at least a little bit more of a heads up as to where any fire might be coming from with regards to torpedoes. And adjusting my aim a little bit here, and we are going to go ahead and bail out of the smoke and engage this Pensacola full time. 3K in one salvo. Lots of bounces. But we got a whole enemy fleet behind us, so we are going to get the heck out of Dodge while we do this. 4K in that last salvo. Pensacola's firing HE. There's another 3K taken off. You can see these ships do a really good job of just chewing away at various cruisers, and he's a tier lower, but anyway, we want to go ahead and we want to kick that rudder over as much as we possibly can. We got battleship shooting at us from behind. We got another cruiser back there. Just in general, a bad idea to be in the target of that many ships. Also, one thing, I believe I said it in the previous video, is that I'm not real comfortable with this ship. It's not a huge upgrade over the Fiji. The Fiji was such an amazing ship compared to the Leander, and that's saying a lot because the Leander was a really solid ship too. So it's not like the Leander was bad and the Fiji is just a light year improvement. We're certainly not talking about, going from Colorado to North Carolina, even though I like the Colorado a lot. But this ship it never quite gets there. It never quite gets there for me, and I really don't care for the Edinburgh. It's one of the few ships in this line that I've played, and I went, oh yeah, I mean, it's really good. It's a really good ship, but by the time you get to tier 8, the lethality of everything that's shooting at you has gone so far up. The ship just doesn't feel like an upgrade over Fiji, and the matchmaker is a lot harder. You start ending up in tier 10 fights, and it gets real difficult to consistently do damage with these ships, especially because of that lethality issue. You start getting close to enemy battleships in this, and you're just going to get smoked. And I don't mean like smoked up with smoke, like I just popped there. I mean like one-shot salvo and you're gone. 2K taking off the Scharnhorst, use at distance. That's one other thing that these ships really lack in is, well, yeah, you've got all of these AP rounds that have these really short fuses, but they got no oomph to them. And by the time you get to these ranges, well, it just doesn't work out. Could have I chosen a different battle to demonstrate this? I sure could have. I had a couple other battles that I could have, but what I wanted to go ahead and demonstrate with this battle was the ability of this ship to reject Citadel hits. Fiji was pretty soft, Edinburgh, it's a pretty decent upgrade in terms of armor. You can actually bounce incoming fire. I don't want to say you can bounce it well, but this ship certainly isn't in nearly as bad a shape against enemy fire as the Fiji was, and the Fiji itself is pretty good too. So it's not like the ship is horrible, I mean, you can still do a lot of damage. It's not as consistently good for its tier as the Fiji is. I mean, the Fiji just spoils you to death. The Edinburgh, it's a pretty good ship. It just doesn't feel like one after a while. We went ahead and we launched torpedoes way in advance of that Scharnhorst. I was anticipating him giving up his chase here. And now that he's broadside to us, well, let's continue to poke him. We got to pay attention to our countdown timer on our smoke. You can see we got 4 seconds until those smoke circles start to really get close to disappearing. So full power, let's get on out of the smoke cloud while we continue to put rounds into him. And we are out of the smoke. We are still doing pretty decent chunks of damage to the Scharnhorst, but we got to pay attention. There's an NC and a Scharnhorst over on the other side. All right, we got incoming fire. Yep, he got a Citadel hit out of that. This is one of the many instances that you'll get Citadeled from an angle. However, you'll notice it wasn't multiple Citadels, it was just the one. And once again, this Scharnhorst is slowing down. We still have those other ones around, so we need to take advantage of our maneuverability here. There you can see. And there we took another Citadel from the other Scharnhorst. So it's not invulnerable by any stretch of the imagination. It does have the ability to bounce incoming shells. It's a little bit more difficult than other ships are. You can see we popped Hydro. We still have a destroyer around that I have no idea where he's at, and his last known location is pretty close to me. So I'm anticipating him, kind of coming around this other way, but I see the smoke off over towards C, and, well, I get the distinct impression that he's over there somewhere. Yep, in fact, he just started capping C. So we're going to go over here and we're going to keep harassing these battleships. There's an Otago way the heck back there, too. I'm kind of curious as to what he's thinking, but it's one of them things, you've got semi-broadside targets, especially battleships, engage them from range and go to town. To me, it feels like, and I don't know if it's just the way the game has felt lately, but it feels like this game's scale has gone awry. Like 12K seems a lot further away than it used to, and I think that's mostly just all in my head, but I could be wrong. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep engaging other ships here. You know, the unfortunate part of this battle is it is tier 8. Everything is taking place so quickly that I just don't have a real good way to deal lots of damage to these ships. I don't have fires to rely on. All I have is AP. Of course, the only targets that I have available are not presenting an ideal profile for it. We're still taking 1,300 off at a time. We also have a Scharnhorst, and he is coming around at what can only be best described as point blank. 18 knot deployment on the smoke there. We've disappeared into our smoke cloud. Just double check to make sure, because if I need to bug out of there, I need to bug out now. And fire away. And watch the damage just add up. 5K, one salvo. This is really the ranges at which these cruisers shine. Okay, so 1K, not exactly a good demonstration, Whiskey. 512? I thought you just said that this was like the good range. Well, it is. Just give it a second here. 1K, still not doing really all that well. When does this start adding up? There's 3K. Gotta get those shells in over top of the turrets so that they actually impact the superstructure behind. Well, my ADD, my target ADD goes off. We have an even bigger threat. The Tagos can carry hydroacoustic. That's not to say that the Scharnhorst isn't a threat, it's just I've got bigger things to worry about at this point. That Atago is one of them. We also have no idea how much time is left in our smoke. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bail on out of this. I thought that those shots were going to get them for sure, but apparently they didn't. Our torpedoes are up. We are still in smoke, so we're going to go ahead and launch those torpedoes. And he shoots, and he gets denied. That is the Royal Navy cruisers overpen at close range. Battleship guns will overpen. They have to aim them low enough. Get a torpedo hit, 2 torpedo hits, and the end of the match. I'm really not feeling... I really don't have a good solid feel for this ship. I just don't believe that it's a good upgrade over Fiji. 105,994 damage, 1,852 base XP. There you can see the detailed report and then the credit screen, obviously, too. I just, like I said, I don't feel that this is a super big upgrade over Fiji, and it doesn't play like Fiji plays. You know, the lethality of the situation is just simply too high to effectively play it like Fiji. So I play a little bit more long range. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.